Hello, I am back with another 1cc video, this time of DoDonPachi DaiOuJou's Arrange EX mode, and we're starting in stage 1. I'm picking the Type A ship, and the first thing you're going to notice is, whoa, there are a lot more bullets than the other Arrange modes, and so if you're coming from Arrange L or Arrange S, you will be in for a surprise that this entire game features loop 2 patterns. And so stage 1, upon your first impression, might end up being a little challenging. You might end up dying a few times, but you'll get used to the loop 2 patterns. The game does throw you a couple of bones though. The first one being that it retains the Tensei mechanic from Arrange L. If you're not familiar with the Tensei mechanic, what happens is that you laser medium and large sized enemies, and when you laser them, you build up the Tensei gauge on the bottom right corner of your screen. When that fills up and you destroy that enemy, you then get a bullet cancel from all the enemies bullets that are fired, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of momentarily reset your position. It can save you from getting hit at some points, which will definitely be the case in this run, especially with all the bullets flying at you. And so that's another one. And another mechanic that it carries over, of course, with the Arrange mode is that you gain lives for defeating bosses. And so one thing I'll try to do in this run is I'll keep track of the lives that I have and whether or not I am at a net negative or a net positive in terms of my life count. So if I take a hit in a stage, I know I'm going to gain a life by defeating a boss, so I might not necessarily reset, and I'll keep going there. If I lose too many lives, then I will have reset, but that's how I kind of go about it this way. I picked the Type A ship because I like the firepower, and being Type A XC, the shot is fairly wide enough that I can use the standard shot and still be able to destroy a lot of enemies. So here on the stage 1 boss, the stage 1 boss is surprisingly very challenging, and I encountered a bit of reset syndrome here, meaning that I would keep playing runs and I keep getting hit on the stage 1 boss, and I'd reset the game over and over again. And so you see here that I get hit, and this is kind of like late into my runs. I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna keep going, bomb the boss because I don't want to deal with another one of those nasty patterns, and I just keep going. And so it's kind of the mentality of keeping track of the lives gained and lost. I know I'll gain a life by defeating this boss, so I lost one and gained one at net 0, and so I still have 4 extends here. Moving on to, 3 extends, and I got another one for the score extend, so there we go, I have 4 extends. Here we are in stage 2 in the beginning, and once again, the loop 2 patterns, these enemies are a lot more aggressive, and the particular problem is not so much the large and medium-sized enemies. Of course, those will be a huge problem later, but the popcorn enemies and how many little tiny bullets they fire out, especially like in a very long line, and if you don't defeat them, they'll just keep firing at you, and they're all aimed, and so if you let them clump up too much, they'll end up walling you off. So it's important to sometimes not even focus so much on the medium enemies, but the smaller ones that are floating around that lake there, and see how they end up walling me off. But I have a hyper here, which another bone that the Arrange EX throws at you that lets you survive a little longer is that it retains the auto bomb and an auto hyper. So if you have a hyper available, if you have a bomb available, it'll activate it automatically whenever you get hit. The duration is pretty short though, so it's in Arrange mode. Although you build up hypers fairly quickly, especially if you're chaining and you're playing for score, the hypers don't last that long, so it's a bit of a drawback here. Here we're going on to the mid boss, and this mid boss isn't too bad compared to the loop 1 version of the Arrange modes. Just the bullets are a lot faster here, but in general, the dodging strategy is fairly much the same. With Type A, you don't have to dodge too many of its patterns. Here we are on the stage 2 hyper corridor. If you have a hyper, then I recommend using it, especially since you can get all the Tensei candles from those big tanks and from the buildings that will, and a couple lucky dodges there, but I end up using a bomb. And another note is the bomb that is used depends on the shot that's being fired. So if you're using your rapid shot and you get hit and you trigger your auto bomb, then it triggers the rapid shot bomb, which is the wide area of effect that cancels all the bullets on screen. If you're using a laser and you get hit or you trigger your auto bomb, then you use a laser bomb, which does a high amount of concentrated damage in front of you. And so that all depends on what shot you're using. So here I am with the stage 2 boss. This one is, and I keep practicing these needle patterns, and it's kind of like a hit or miss for me, and especially with these loop 2 patterns that are very, very fast, it's quite challenging for me. So here I'm doing pretty well so far. It's all about threading the needle and finding the gap, and the problem is when those needles overlap, and that's what can be challenging. And of course, as you're trying to find the gap, you have those red bullets that are trying to pick you off. So far so good. I managed to make it through that pretty well, and so I use a bomb because those are coming a little too fast. And now we have the final spread here, which I believe these bullets are pretty random, and so I end up using another bomb here because there isn't really a set path to go through. You just have to kind of find your way in. But so far so good. Defeated that boss. I have 5 extends now, so I'm feeling pretty good about this run so far. Now we're on to stage 3. Stage 3 is where the tenseis come into effect a lot more. You have a lot more larger enemies, and so while the difficulty does ramp up, so do the tensei cancels, which kind of lowers the difficulty a bit. That's particularly what makes stage 1 and 2 so difficult, is that you have a lot of popcorn enemies and you can't cancel the bullets as much. Here we have these huge towers and huge tanks, so I can just hang in there with my laser, especially that really strong type A laser, and get those bullet cancels. And here we have another one here. I'm going to get walled off, so I use my hyper. And with those ships in particular, oh, I took a hit there, which is unfortunate. Those ships there, every time you destroy a part, you get a bullet cancel, so it's like those give you 3 or 4 bullet cancels, which is nice. And you'll see that the tensei cancels kind of trivialize certain parts of the game, especially later on in the stages, stage 4, stage 5, where towards the end they're usually really difficult, but the tensei cancels make it pretty manageable. And so here we are at the mid-boss. Not too bad with the Loop 2 version here, it's just that the bullets travel faster and a little bit more dense. But I have my hyper on standby, so I use it, and kind of glancing at the health bar on the right gadget there, the most useful gadget in this M2 port, the boss health bar, to figure out how I'm doing here, and kind of squeeze my way through here, trigger my auto hyper, but that's alright. And I used my bomb, and I thought I picked up the bomb, but that was kind of weird, where I thought I would have a bomb refill there, but here we go. I get walled off, so I end up using my laser bomb, kind of position myself more, and here we are in the second half of the stage, which this is a place to get as many cancels as quickly as you can. So I get that cancel, and then not only for those big towers do you get a cancel for having the tensei gauge up, but you also get a bullet cancel while it's exploding, so you get an extended cancel there, which is really helpful to reposition yourself across the screen. And I'm just working my way across, and this is the tower I'm talking about here, so aim it, and while it's blowing up, you can see all those little choppers, those drones, those bullets are getting continuously canceled, which is really, really helpful. Here we are on the middle one. I kind of hang into the middle here, and squeeze my way on the side, activate my hyper, and then we have this rush of enemies in here that's going to try to wall you off with the bullets. I end up finding a cutback lane, which is nice, and then we have 2 towers on the side. I go all the way up to then get that huge bullet cancel, and then I get hit, so I activate my auto hyper there, but that's alright. I'm doing pretty well, 6 extends. This boss is very challenging, especially with the Loop 2 version. The bullets can go quite quickly. This first pattern isn't too bad. Well, I say that as I get hit. Not too bad normally, but this pattern especially is, I usually get hit on that and I didn't, so kind of a trade-off here. And then for this one, you want to find your cutback lane. I use a bomb because I didn't want to risk anything, and then trying to find the cutback lane, I use a couple bombs, so I couldn't find the lane properly. And then this one, I'm taking advantage. I got a lucky dodge there. I want to take advantage of type A speed, and especially while I'm lasering, having that extra speed helps because it keeps my damage up. Moving on to the final pattern here, these bullets travel very quickly, and I don't have any bombs left, so I'm expecting to lose a life here, but I managed to get actually 2 hypers before losing a life, so I almost made it all the way through, but that's alright. I lost a life, but I'm going to gain 1 by defeating the boss, so I'm still in a pretty good position here. Moving on to stage 4, things are going to really ramp up now. This is actually my favorite stage in the game, design-wise, and especially with the music, with the arranged soundtrack. It's really well done. Lots going on in the stage. You get to well, giant cannon, so it's pretty fun to play the stage. So here we are. The objective is to destroy those turrets on the side. Those turrets on the side are going to give you a tensei cancel, and that will be key to surviving this part of the stage. So I'm just going to hang out in the corner and try to hold out as much as possible to try to use as few resources as possible. And I use a bomb there, so if you use a bomb, or if you don't laser the large enemy long enough, you won't get the cancel. So I have to train my laser on those huge turrets and to try to get that cancel. Meanwhile, all these kind of like Galaga style enemies are just flying across the screen shooting bullets at me, which gets really annoying. And then here you have a horde of popcorn enemies here that are going to try to wall you off. I had a laser in stock, so I use it, and we're heading on to the elevator section, which this section is very challenging because if your timing is incorrect and you kind of fall behind while destroying those trains, the elevator trains, then they can quickly overwhelm you. And a trick that I like to use, I try to use my rapid shot to go over the top of it, so around in the front and over the top to destroy the tanks that are on top of there, and then to try to destroy the train. And of course, when you do that, you get the tensei cancel, and so that's really helpful there. Here we are heading on to the last set of trains where it gets really cramped here, so I use my hyper and I'm destroying these, and oh, I almost made it through, but that was really quick. And of course, when you use a hyper, the rank increases, so the bullets go even faster, which is no good at all. But here I'm just abusing my laser, getting the tensei cancel, and then now I have another horde of bullets that are trying to wall me off. I use a hyper to take advantage of the invulnerability frames with the hyper. And in the arrange mode, not only do you get invul frames on your hyper startup, but when your hyper ends, you also get invul frames, and that'll be especially important later on in the game. Here we are on the secret extend. You have to destroy the two turrets on the side before destroying the middle one. I make a critical mistake in which I bomb the middle turret so I don't get the extend. You cannot use a bomb in the middle turret. I did this during my arrange L run too, which is very unfortunate. And so at this point, I'm like, oh gosh, like what if it's that one life that ends up costing me the run? And I'm thinking this right now, but no time to dwell on that because I have the rail section here where these rails move randomly and they spawn randomly. And so it makes this especially challenging with loop 2 patterns because those bullets can quickly wall me off. But hanging in there and using bombs, using all my resources. And here is the other giant cannon that is very fun to destroy. And so you have to kind of make your way up to the top, dodge those Galaga style enemies, and then hoping to destroy it. And then you get this huge bullet cancel where you can just fire your shot and all those bullets will be canceled while that cannon's blowing up, which is very cool. And alright, that was a handful, but I made it to the boss. And so this boss is quite challenging, a lot of overlapping patterns again, and that go very quickly. So if you have the resources, use them here. And at some points I notice that I get a tensei cancel. I'm not exactly sure what triggers that because it isn't really apparent that there are destructible parts on this boss, but I got a tensei cancel there, which is nice. So I'm just training my laser and then use my bomb to kind of skip this pattern. So now we have these two parts that end up on the side. I hang out on the right side here and kind of try to circle around here to find the gap between those lines. And this is kind of like a precursor to the Koryu pattern where you have to find those gaps between the crossing patterns. Here I'm hanging out in the middle, and then when those discs converge, I escape here, I use my hyper, and then I'm not quite there, so I'm going to try to, there we go, laser those discs to get a cancel. I almost made it all the way through without dying, but in the middle here I use another hyper, and I almost got hit again. I almost got trapped by those bullets, so I'm glad I made it out. And so, not too shabby so far. Heading into stage 5. So here we are in stage 5, and I'm really glad I have a hyper because immediately the enemies are going to flood the screen with bullets, and with the hyper I can clear them out a lot faster. I get another hyper and I get a tensei cancel here, and that's going to be the theme of this level where you're going to have a lot of large enemies with a flood of popcorn enemies. You have to just be patient, train your laser on those large enemies, on those large ships, get the cancels, and then clean up the popcorn enemies that are there. So that's what I'm doing here. have these huge tanks here. Just cancel all those bullets, and then whenever I have a hyper on standby, I can use it defensively, so I'll just wait until I get hit, or go all the way up here and then activate it manually, so making full use of the screen. But because I went too high on the screen, I got hit and triggered my auto bomb, which is unfortunate. So now this boss is gonna rush me, stay on the bottom, and then I use my bomb, and I almost killed it on time, but I ended up losing a life. So that's alright, I still have 5 extends left, and I am now making my way across the screen here. I have my hyper, and I'm gonna end up using another bomb here, heading into the bee section, or the beehive. And these bees can be tensei'd, which is nice, because those little drones will crawl along the beehive and shoot aimed bullets and kind of cut the screen off for wherever you're going. So I end up going all the way up, have to use my bomb. I'm just gonna get hit anyways. And as long as you kind of memorize where the bees are, you can reliably get bullet cancels to give you enough space to move. So that's what I'm doing here. The bees showing up, bullet cancel, and then kind of peppering the popcorn enemies with my rapid shot. And then I'm making my way all the way around here, taking full advantage of the screen and the fact that all of those bullets are aimed at me. So if I have the space, I can dodge all those bullets around one more time before this boss to dodge those, and they'll just float right off the screen, which ended up helping me out. This mid-boss, these bullets can get pretty dense, especially with how thick those bullets are, and so I ended up taking a hit there, which gave me enough room, enough time to defeat it. So now on to the next one, where we have a flood of popcorn enemies again. I don't believe these can be tensei'd unless I'm in hyper, and so actually nope. Yeah. So I ended up getting canceled there, which gave me a cutback lane, but yeah, I ended up using them when I got walled off. Now for this boss, these fireballs travel very quickly, but a trick I like to do is to kind of hug the left wall of little fireballs, and as long as I kind of hug that wall, then I won't get hit. Even though the space might get a little tight here, I only train my eye on the left column of little fireballs, and then as long as I kind of follow that, then I won't get hit. So here we are into the next section here. This is bullet cancel city. Just train your laser, cancel the bullets, and then just keep going back and forth. And this is where the Type A laser with the Type A XE really comes in handy, because you can destroy enemies a lot faster with the laser, so you don't have to risk as much in terms of waiting for the bullet cancel to come. So that's what I'm doing. Going side to side, triggering my hyper where I need to, and then getting those bullet cancels. Using my rapid shot for a little bit to kind of pick off the little popcorn enemies, so that they're really, see how tiny those pink bullets are. Those really tiny pink bullets sometimes can get overlapped by the larger ones and kind of sneak up on you, which has happened to me a couple of times, and so definitely watch out for that. Heading on to this part here, just I was a little tight there, but I had a bomb, which is nice. And one tank down, then cancel this tank, bullet cancel this tank, and you can see how just holding my laser kind of trivializes this part where if I didn't have the tensei mechanic, then this would be very, very difficult, but being able to remove those bullets from the screen is very useful. So I'm just abusing my laser here. Moving on to Koryu. And so this is loop 2 Koryu, so these bullets are going to travel very quickly and they overlap, and those pesky needle patterns come back, so I'm going to use every resource at my disposal to try to avoid that pattern. And this is another overlapping one that moves really, really quickly. I have another hyper, so I'm just going to, if I have a hyper, I'm using it, and then I'm just going to use as many auto bombs as possible. I have enough lives, so I'm feeling pretty confident that I have 5 extends that I'll be able to clear this game right now. If I can make it to Hibachi with 2, maybe 3 extends, and I feel like I'll be able to clear it. Really good thing is that the laser bomb gives out a ton of damage, and so especially for this phase here of Koryu, if I use a bomb, the laser bomb just kind of deletes him. So using my laser here, and then You can see how much damage that laser bomb does, so I'm just waiting until I get hit, and if I get hit, then I'll trigger my laser bomb, so I'm not too worried right now with this one. Especially with that pattern. Pattern's kind of nasty. So, defeat Koryu, and now I'm at Hibachi, and so this here I'm going to use my hyper and take advantage of the fact that you do a lot more damage when you point blank with your laser because of the aura around your ship. And so I'm going to use my hyper as often as possible, and then now for this part, unfortunately you cannot damage Hibachi with your bomb, even with the laser bomb, but what it does do is that if you're in a particularly nasty pattern, then you can kind of skip the pattern. That's the advantage of using a bomb there. This is kind of really challenging, so I'm kind of lasting as long as possible and point blanking when I can. I'm almost at the washing machine phase. I just have a little bit more and trying to dodge these pesky needles. I have a little bit more. I go right up on Hibachi and point blank him, and now this is the washer machine phase where here I'm going to try to just use as many resources as I can, and whenever I die I'm going to go right up to Hibachi because there's a little bit of a gap, and I get a small Tensei cancel there, which is a nice surprise. And there's a little bit of time after you die where you can go right up to Hibachi and get some extra damage in, especially when you're doing your hyper, and I got a really good damage run right there where I use a hyper and got a ton of damage. Got another Tensei cancel here. Looking at the fact that I have 2 extends left with his life almost depleted, so I'm very confident that I'll clear. Now it's just a matter of how many lives I'm going to clear with and end up not dying. So after that, I got 2 extends after that, which is nice. A little decent bump in score. Nothing to brag about, but a nice end of game extend bonus is always good. And yeah, so I was fairly happy with this clear. It took me a little while just getting used to the loop 2 patterns, especially the earlier stages. I found that routing the earlier stages was more challenging than the later ones, only because I didn't have an opportunity to get as many bullet cancels to kind of save me, or if I was off on my timing or sloppy with my routing, you can kind of make up for it with the bullet cancels. But stages 1 and 2 in particular, if you're off with your timing, then you can get quickly overwhelmed, and then if you lose lives in those stages, you end up resetting. So I had a particularly bad route of reset syndrome with this one, where I kept dying and thinking like, oh, if I lose a life in stage 1 or stage 2, like, okay, it's a reset because I need everything I can for the end. So I'm glad I stuck around with it when I died in stage 1. Sometimes you just have to clear a credit. I just have to play through a credit even if you die in stage 1, like on the stage 1 boss. Just play through, because you never know what's going to happen. So this time I ended up being able to clear, which is nice. So if you enjoyed this commentary, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed and dropped a like, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.